The handoff from noon to evening is a ceremony you conduct with breath, with pace, with the small kit that served you in the harsh hour. If you honor the transition, travel becomes graceful again. Distance returns without the old price, and choices widen from next pocket to next place. You feel the change before you see it. Exhale lengthens on its own. The skin of your forearm stops flinching. The sand scent goes from hot glass to mineral. Your shadow fattens from a coin to a button to a blade. This is not the time to burst from discipline. It is the time to convert it. Keep your ratios one more ridge than your heart demands. Move 8, rest 1, then 12 and 1, then a steady 15 with a shoulder's pause to read the ground. The ledger that carried you across noon deserves a calm closing, not a celebratory spending spree. First task, sort the heat out of your kit. Shake grit from scarf edges, then lift the crown a finger higher. Now that the sky is softer, ventilation can be generous. Loosen the belt one hole. Bellies breathe better. An evening favors whole body breath. Rotate insoles or fold a spare cloth under the forefoot if the sole thinned at noon. Tip the bottle in shade and watch. If it barely sweats, you've earned a larger sip. Take it, but keep the ritual. Mouth, hold, swallow with a slow exhale. Wet a coin of scarf at the nape and hide it under the dry layer. Now evaporation pays you back instead of robbing. Next task, enlarge your map. Lift your eyes from 10 paces to the low horizon. Choose not just a line, but an address. That leeward bench with stones, that shoulder with a view and a soft drop to shelter, that wadi bend with firm sand on the high bank. The day's long practice of chaining shadows now becomes linking places. Keep your staff as pointer more than probe. Plant, align its shadow to your bearing, and walk that calm arc while light still has weight. Evening brings wind like a returned friend. Breezes rise from the low places and pour into passes. Air that was a bully becomes a companion. Walk slightly cross-breeze so your skin feels combed, not slapped. If gusts pick up grit, drop the scarf into sail for a minute. Turn your back to fill it, then pivot and let it become a soft wall at your chest while you breathe. Wind lanes, which were lifelines at noon, become highways now. Their ripples read like sheet music you can follow at a longer stride without the old penalty. You can afford to think of food. Keep it small and agreeable with the air. A salted date, a heel of flatbread, a finger of cheese if you carried it wrapped in shade. Eat while standing in a lee ribbon or sitting spine to stone so digestion borrows cool, not heat. Salt is welcome again, not as a tease at the tongue, but as honest fuel. Drink a little more than the noon sips, but not like a celebration. The body trusts steady kindness more than grand gestures. Feet, too, deserve the ceremony. Bare them for 60 breaths in a clean ribbon of shade or on a cool stone, but only after the sun drops and the sand stops stinging. Brush off grit. Rewrap a strap if it rubbed. Tuck a thin strip of cloth under the heel if tenderness whispers. Put them back to work with a shorter step for 5 minutes, then let stride lengthen. You're telling the day, we're not sprinting to camp, we're gliding. Now choose light carefully. Glare has softened, but contrast grows. Dune backs that were diagrams at noon become velvet. Wadis read darker than they are. Keep crests for daylight, corridors for dusk. If you must cross a skyline, crest on an exhale with eyes already adjusted. Don't let the first star catch you with pupils tight. When shade deepens into blue, route by soft geometry. Walk the seam where firm and soft meet, the border between pavement and sand, the shoulder where slope eases, the line of scattered stones that always hints at older ground beneath. These seams carry you true and ask less of ankles. If you travel with others, the evening handoff has its own cadence. Drop the noon spacing to 1 pace in lanes, 2 in dust, and relearn the quiet tap language. 1 tap, hold. 2 taps, veer to lee. 3 taps, pocket, quick check. Switch lead every 10 minutes. No one should pull evening for too long. The point is to arrive with everyone's ledger gentle, not to crown a champion of distance. Let talk return in low strings. Names of colors, plans for the bench you chose, never the kind of chatter that outruns breath. As blue hour gathers, begin to pre-shape rest. Scan for 3 things in one place: a breeze that licks but doesn't claw, ground that holds without prick, and a leeward view that gives you sky enough to read weather. Stones the size of a hand make perfect kitchen and lantern shelves. Stones the size of a head, when cool, make backrests that send night into your spine. If the wind promises chill, site your rest where a dune shoulder breaks the path of the gust, and drape the scarf as a low wall on the windward side, and you'll make a room in the open. If fire belongs to your story, keep it small, respectful, and clean. Use a hollow where last year's stones made a ring, or 3 stones set close so flame licks, not leaps. Feed with sticks that leave little ash, and let the last red sink before you move on in the morning. The desert remembers scars. If fire is not wise, warmth is still possible. Curl around your spine cooler stone, now turned evening warmer, and let it return its day. Your scarf can be a cloak instead of a roof. Your belt can hold it folded where breeze would pry. Stars arrive, and with them bearings richer than shadows gave. But keep one eye on the wind's grammar and the night's cold. It's tempting to cash out discipline when the sky gentles. Resist. Walk your last leg at the even-song pace, 12 and 1, then a final 8 and 1 to your chosen bench, so camp happens as ceremony, not collapse. When you lay down the staff, let it shadow, faint now, point to morning's first intention. When you fold the scarf, leave the crown circlet in place, so your first hat at dawn is ready without fuss. When you set the bottle, set it in shade. Night can chill too fast. You want water that greets the throat, not startles it. What you learned at noon becomes grace at dusk. Shade stacking turns into comfort stacking. Breath ratios turn into songs, and the tiny architecture of cloth becomes a quiet room where the day sits down beside you and stops shouting. The desert is the same. You are the one who has changed, paced, read, listened. That is the handoff from surviving to traveling well.
In the noon desert, fortune arrives as a slight dimming, the edge of a cloud, a veil of blown dust, a high thin gauze that softens the sky. Luck is not a lake you can drink. It is a coupon with an expiration measured in breaths. The craft is to spend it without spending yourself. Trade the brief mercy for position, not for pride. For cooler minutes ahead, not for a hot sprint now. First, learn the signs of useful luck. A fat, low cloud with a hard edge throws a clean shadow you can see walking toward you. A thin, cirrus veil only trims glare. It doesn't drop temperature much. A dust veil does both. It cuts glare and filters sun, but it also adds grit to air and steals a little wind from your lungs. Test with the back of hand trick. Hold your hand at chest height. If the skin sting softens within 3 breaths, this is luck you can bank. If brightness dulls but the skin still pleads, treat it as a seeing aid, not a cooling one. Use it to pick better terrain, not to lengthen your stride. Decide before the shade reaches you what you will do with it. 2 waypoints, no more. The next lee ribbon on the dune ahead, and the stone seam beyond it. Name them. When the light softens, rise and go. Not fast, just continuous, with the same 2 to 4 breath you used in the blaze. Luck loves readiness. It punishes improvisation. If the cloud shrinks midway, keep the plan anyway. Finishing a calm move is cheaper than beginning a frantic one. Cloud shade changes the geometry of everything you've been reading. Lee ribbons fatten, stone pockets deepen. Even your own shadow grows honest,
a small blade instead of a coin. Use this honesty to refresh your bearings. Plant the staff for a heartbeat. Align its shadow to your chosen bearing, toe to toe as earlier, and lock that picture in. When the light returns savage, you will keep walking the same calm arc instead of zigzagging toward shimmer. Dust veils ask for a different etiquette. They can be cool friends with rough manners. Wrap the scarf so it floats a finger off the lips. Filter without smothering. Lower the visor a thumb width to spare your eyes, but keep the crown vented. Dust steals light. It should not steal air. Shorten stride half a shoe, not a full shoe. Dust makes footing deceitful on crusts and polished stones. Use the veiled minutes to cross bright gaps you avoided under clear sun. The white shoulder of a playa, the shallow saddle between two dunes, then re-enter safe shade chaining as soon as the veil thins. When luck is long, rare but real, as when a broad cloud parks above, shift strategy from steal minutes to set the stage. Do maintenance. Clear your scarf's breathing edge of grit. Shake sand from the mat square. Retie the belt looser so the belly can breathe. Reposition insoles or add the cloth wrap to the sandal's forefoot before heat returns. Eat a quiet pinch, half a date, one salted nut, to keep cramp at bay without waking digestion's furnace. Re-wet the nape with 2 spoonfuls and hide it under a dry layer. Long shade pays back slow evaporation better than bright noon does. Spend 10 breaths on alignment. Pick your evening goal. A leeward bench, a shoulder with stones for a pot, an exit from the flats, and aim the next legs of travel toward that simple kindness. Luck can tempt overreach. Resist the urge to crest every skyline just because the glare softened. Keep the rule. Crest on the exhale, and only after a short rest. Clouds lie about slope. What looked gentle under a veil reveals itself as a punishing climb when the sun returns. Instead, move parallel to contours while the light is kind. Stack lateral progress that becomes cheap vertical later when shadows lengthen and the lee grows longer. A cloud's departure is as important as its arrival. Watch the upsun edge. When it feathers and thins, you have maybe 30 breaths before the world brightens. Use the last 10 to land rather than launch. End in a pocket you would have chosen under full sun, wrist shade ready, staff planted, scarf set as visor, so the return of heat finds you already calm. If you are mid-crossing when the edge shreds, do not sprint the last meters. Shrink stride, guard breath, and arrive with a ledger that is still black. A crossing at 90% is victory. 110% writes debt you'll pay for half an hour. Sometimes luck is small, one hand-sized cloud, one slip of dust. Honor small luck with small actions. Take exactly 12 cool steps to the next dot shadow seam along a pebble pavement. Reset your bearing by one glance. Wet one coin-sized patch of scarf, not the whole nape. Let the gift stay a gift. Do not turn it into a bargain with your body. If luck refuses to form, you can still counterfeit a tiny version. Kick a shallow fan of sand with the edge of your sandal, then kneel on the upsun lip. That feathered bank throws a thumb of shade across your wrists. Slide a flat shard or your bottle cap under the scarf edge to stiffen a visor into an honest brim. Hold the scarf away from the belly by the belt to make an air lane. Luck is also craft. Craft practiced becomes its own weather. Group travel has its own cloud etiquette. When shade sweeps across you, stagger starts. First and third move, second and fourth stay and reset kit. Then swap at the next pocket. The moving pair pulls a calm line the resting pair can follow when glare returns. No one sprints, everyone arrives with the same ledger. In dust, set a 2-pace interval so the lead's wake doesn't feed the follower's lungs. Let the staff tips tap softly as signals. 2 taps for veer left to the lee, 1 tap for hold the lane, 3 taps for pocket, rest. When evening finally begins to write long blue across the sand, give thanks by not wasting the first generosity. Keep the same ratios for one more ridge than you want to. You are not racing the night. You are escorting yourself into it with composure intact. Clouds and veils were not miracles. They were brief truces. You used them to move the board, never to forget the game. Soon enough, the breeze will lift from its day sleep, and the desert will sigh. Your shadow grows to a walking stick, then to a path. You have coins of cool left in pocket because you never tried to buy noon. This is how luck is meant to feel in hard country. Not a jackpot, but a quiet discount you stacked, breath by breath, until the ledger closed kindly.
Sometimes, noon gives you nothing. A white pan of glare, a sky ironed flat, no ridge, no shrub, no boulder, no wind. The horizon wobbles with mirage, and even your own shadow shrinks to a coin you could cover with a thumb. This is the hour's hardest lesson. When the desert removes options, stillness becomes a tool. Not surrender, craft. You make a climate from posture, fabric, breath, and timing. You turn minutes that could scald into minutes that merely pass. Begin by refusing panic's bargain. Panic offers speed in exchange for water you don't have. Instead, you buy time. Settle into a micro-camp measured in breaths, not stakes. Kneel on one knee with the other foot planted. This is your hinge. Drape your scarf into a low dome. One corner caught beneath the planted foot, the opposite corner pinched at your shoulder, the far edge weighted by your bottle resting on a folded scrap of cloth. Slip a reed or a twist of scarf into a circlet under the crown so fabric tents above your head. You have made shade where there was none. Small, but real. High enough to keep cloth off skin, open enough to let exhale leak away. Now lower the furnace from within. Breath is the first fan. Choose a cadence that lengthens exhale. 2 counts in through the nose, 4 counts out between soft lips. The out-breath slides heat and worry out together. After 6 cycles, notice what eases. A tiny slackening at the jaw, a softening behind the eyes, shoulders that sit a finger lower on the ribs. Switch to 3 counts in, 5 out if the heart is loud. The body listens to that ratio more than to thoughts about thirst. Hands and wrists are your valves. Bring both wrists into the darkest wedge of your little tent. Tuck them against the belly under cloth. The blood there runs close to the skin. Cool wrists, cooler you. If the bottle holds a little night still, press it to the inside of an elbow for 2 breaths, then hide it again. Wet nothing yet. Evaporation at dead noon throws good water into hot air faster than it repays you. Let pulse fall first, then decide. When the ground radiates like a skillet, interrupt contact. Never sprawl. Touch sand with points, not planes. Knee, toe, the edge of a sandal, the round of a bottle resting on cloth. If you have no mat, fold your scarf's free end twice beneath the knee and rotate the knee every minute, north, east, south, west, so one place doesn't cook. Shoes on, always. Add a loop of cloth under the forefoot if the sole is thin. Heels live in shade. Toes forgive more. Light hurts energy as much as heat does. Build a visor from your scarf without tightening the trap around your mouth. Pinch a small bill forward, slide a twig or the staff's tip between layers above the brow to hold it. Lower lids stop squinting. The neck stops guarding the eyes. Breath lengthens. Sight drops to 10 paces. The horizon can wait. With no wind, air stagnates under cloth unless you teach it a path. Lift the windward hem a finger, any direction will do today, and then settle it. That finger width is a throat. Exhale toward the throat, not into your chest. Fabric that barely lifts means the climate is circulating. Fabric that sucks to the face means you've sealed it too tight. Everything is small in this craft. Small is enough. Time is a substance you can pour out slowly. Set a stillness interval and keep it. 90 breaths. Not until I can't stand it. At 45, check the ledger. Pulse softer? Tightness down? If yes, you hold course. If no, adjust one variable only. Open the throat wider. Shift a handspan to new ground. Flip the scarf from single layer shade to double layer. Then honor the count. Predictability is cooling. The nervous system calms when it knows what the next minute is for. When the count ends, rise, but not to flee. Stand into your own shadow coin so that it falls across wrists and throat. Take 12 slow steps, heel low, toes quiet. Scan for tonal differences, not shapes, a seam of darker grains, a line of peppered pebbles, the faint bruised stripe that hints at a hardpan's edge. If nothing offers, accept it immediately, no bargaining, and set the next stillness 120 paces ahead. Distance can be measured. Desolation cannot. You are stringing beads again. Stillness, 12 steps. Stillness, 20 steps. Stillness, 30 steps. The bead string survives the blank hour. Mirage will try to hire your attention with the promise of relief. Test it the way a mason tests a plum. Kneel. Hide your eyes in your own shade for 5 breaths, then look again. If the water stays silver bright instead of flattening to glass, it is nothing. If it becomes grainy, it is only light sliding over rough air. Only when the patch dulls and the surrounding air's shimmer calms as you near it is there a hollow you might borrow. You do not need far shade. You need certain shade. When the sky is a white lid and there is nowhere to go but through, enter the discipline of still walking. This isn't the crawl of exhaustion, it's a metronome you keep for your heart. 3 steps in, 5 steps out. 3 steps in, 5 steps out. Pause 1 breath every 8 cycles to let the ledger balance. Shoulders stay low, elbows close. Hands dangle when moving, hide when still. The staff becomes a pendulum. The tip lands, you move. The tip lands, you move. If your mind clutches, give it a child's job. Count ripples in the few meters you can see, or name colors inside white, bone, milk, salt, ash. Noon loses teeth when you give it categories. What if even your little tent collapses? Cloth too hot, no bottle weight left, mind unruly. Then practice the smallest shade. Posture alone. Turn sideways to the sun. Let your shoulder blade throw a sliver across your throat and wrist. Tuck your chin. Cup one palm lightly over the other and hold them at the sternum under the blade strip. Close the mouth. Soften the tongue. This makes a cool well the size of a book. A well the size of a book is still a well. Only after the first edge of noon softens, when your shadow coin fattens to a button, consider water as coolth, not only as drink. Dribble 2 spoonfuls into the scarf where it crosses the nape, trap it under a dry layer, and count 60 breaths, with exhale longer than inhale. If your skin answers with a sigh, instead of a shiver, the exchange was fair. If it sparks a craving, stop. The air is still too greedy. You can't outrun physics with hope. The blankest flats usually end in a seam if you keep faith with smallness. A low rise appears with one boulder like a punctuation mark. A thin belt of darker grains leans across your path. The light thickens where a shallow pan dips. As soon as anything lifts a line of shade from the ground, even by 2 fingers, your craft turns back into linking pockets. Do not celebrate by rushing, celebrate by accuracy. Wrist in shade, breath in ratio, staff to probe. 12 steps, then rest. Afternoon is being born. Help it along by not wasting it at its first cry. If all else fails, heat stacking, thought narrowing, legs rehearsing panic, declare a deliberate halt. Sit with your back to the pack,
not to the sun, so that the pack becomes a windbreak for what breeze might whisper. Make a promise aloud. I will not move for 90 breaths. Say it once. Keep it. The desert doesn't argue. By the 80th breath, the world will have changed by a degree you can use. Pulse down, sun tilted a hair, mind quieter, or a thread of breeze born from nowhere. You rise and spend that degree like the coin it is. When shade fails, you learn that survival is less about what surrounds you than about what you can stage with cloth, bone, and patience. Stillness is not an absence of action, it is the most precise action you can take when the map goes blank. You will remember this hour later not for its cruelty, but for its exactness. How small a roof you needed to keep one part of you kind. How short a distance you could pace without debt. How a count of breaths turned noon into a wall, into a hallway. And then, almost unnoticed, the hallway opens. Your shadow grows a hand, the wind writes a lane, and the world begins, at last, to offer options. Again.
Shadows tell time. You turn that time into direction. At noon, the desert offers few landmarks that don't waver, but the sun is reliable, and the ground writes its testimony in angles. If you learn to see shade not as accident, but as geometry, you can thread the white hour with less guesswork, choosing paths that spend the least sweat, arriving where late afternoon will be kind, and never gambling a ridge for a mirage. Begin with the clock on the sand. Every object throws a shadow that swings like the hand of a sundial, shortest at solar noon, lengthening to the east in morning and to the west in afternoon. You don't need the exact time, you need the swing. Kneel by a knee-high stone. Mark the tip of its shadow with a fingertip groove. Count 60 slow breaths, then mark again. The line between marks points toward the sun's drift. If the tip walks left across your field of view, afternoon is growing, and your friendly directions live in the vector of that walk. If it walks right, you've risen too early into the pit of noon and must tighten your shade to stride ratios. 2 dots and a line. This is desert trigonometry you can hold in your palm. Angles choose which lee will exist when you arrive. A dune's back throws a narrow ribbon of shade that slides downward as the sun climbs. Aim not at the ribbon's current edge, but at where it will be in 3 minutes. To predict, use your own height as a gauge. Hold your staff upright at arm's length and watch the staff's shadow creep along the sand. The speed of that creep is the same math that moves the dune's shade. If the staff's shadow advances a thumb's width while you count 20 heartbeats, plan your step so your next pocket of rest sits 1 staff shadow ahead. Your body becomes the metronome that sets your route's timing. Terrain pieces are chessmen, each with ranges of shade. Stones cast compact, accurate shadows. Dunes cast long, migrating ones. Shrubs cast ragged islands. Chain the accurate to the generous. Move from a stone's neat pocket, where you can cool wrists quickly, into the migrating lee of a dune, where you can walk farther without glare. Then touch the ragged edge of a shrub to adjust your line without stepping into thorns. Think in 2 or 3 moves. Rock, lee seam, ragged island. Repeat. The game isn't to checkmate the sun, it's to escort yourself into evening with water and calm intact. Lines are as useful as points. A ridge's crest draws a bright knife. The shaded side draws a dim ribbon. Walk the ribbon where it bends smoothly. Sharp bends are ambushes. Wind concentrates there, sand loosens, and shade can blink away if the crest peels. Smooth bends keep promise. If the ribbon narrows to nothing, do not chase it uphill. Slide diagonally until you catch its continuation lower down, where fallen grains have stiffened the slope. Chess says, retreat 1 file to advance 2. Navigation by shadow keeps you true when the world offers no north. If you must maintain a bearing, use the fixed shadow stride. Choose a stick or your staff planted briefly, and rotate until its shadow points along your desired path. Note how that shadow lies relative to your foot, say from big toe to little toe. Each time you stop to rest and rise again, recreate that alignment with your own shadow. Position your feet so your body's blade falls exactly toe to toe in the same way. This keeps you walking a consistent arc around the sun's motion without needing a compass. Over an hour, the arc might drift a little, but you will not wander into wasteful zigzags. Mirage is the board's trickster. It paints false lakes where flats warm unevenly and air stacks into lenses. Shade disarms this trick. A real hollow cools your ankles as you approach. A mirage keeps the air the same until the last second. When you doubt, step into the shortest nearby shadow, yours will do, and look again. Through shade-softened pupils, mirage loses some of its glamour. If the water stays bright and lively even when your eyes relax, it is only light. Let the chess clock tick. Choose the next certain shade instead. Timing saves more than strength. It protects direction. The worst direction error at noon comes from climbing into glare, cresting into blast, then stumbling down the wrong fall line because the brain wants out of pain. Avoid crests at the quarter hour when your pulse is highest. Make crests the reward after a full micro rest, when breath is slow and eyes are calm. Climb not at the steepest face, but at the seam where the lee's ribbon and a faint wind lane cross. That seam is firmer, and your step will land true. Promise yourself no cresting on the inhale. Always reach skylines on an exhale. It sets the pace of caution into your bones. The smallest instruments refine your map. A thread on your scarf's edge flutters with the breeze. Line your path so that flutter rides across your cheek, not into your ear. Cross breeze cools more kindly. The bottle's skin, if shaded, tells temperature. If it warms too fast after a rest, your next leg is too exposed. Steal another minute of cool. The staff's tip draws feedback. If it begins to hiss on contact, the crust has thinned. Shift your line 2 paces toward darker tone where grains pack tighter. Each cue is a soft nudge back onto the route that costs least. Shadows at noon are short, but even a coin's breadth of your own will carry a compass if you watch it. Every dozen steps glance down. If your blade has fattened by a finger, you're drifting into the afternoon you want. Lengthen the work interval by 1 minute and shorten rests by none. If it is thinned to a stamp, contract your stride and add a rest. Play defensively until the board gives you more squares. When the blade stretches to hand length, the chess game relaxes into a walk. Keep your patterns anyway, because patterns are how calm survives first breeze and first star. Choose rendezvous with evening before you can see it. Aim your noon route not just toward forward, but to a place that will hold comfort at dusk. A ridge with a shoulder that faces the leeward breeze. A scatter of stones to hold a small fire's memory without leaving scars. A shallow wadi bend where cold drains but does not pool. Shadows teach you the lie of these places, where banks will shelter, where ridges will temper the night. Desert chess has an endgame. Arrive where rest is easy. Win that, and you have outplayed the day. If clouds come to meddle with the math, thin veils that soften the sky, do not throw your strategy away for speed. Use the softened light to extend rests by a breath and reassure bearings by a longer look to a distant landmark. Then resume your shadow chain. The sun returns quick, and you'll be already poised at the next lee tongue when it does. It feels like luck. It isn't. It's timing. When all these small geometries gather, the desert changes expression. You stop feeling chased. The ground becomes a partner that hands you pieces. Stone bishops with straight, honest moves. Dune rooks that slide long along shaded ranks. Little night jumps from shrub to shrub. You don't need to checkmate anything. You just need to keep your king, the steady pulse, safe until the board cools. And it will.
At noon, complicated gear turns fussy. Simple gear turns wise. The desert rewards tools that are quiet, multi-purpose, and friendly to shade. Things you can deploy in one motion and stow in half a thought. A staff, a scarf, a bottle, a belt. Not much to look at, but enough to reshape noon into something negotiable. Each does a small job well. Together, they make a traveling laboratory of coolth and calm. Begin with the staff. It's more than a third leg. It's a lever, a probe, a mast for shade. Length lives between shoulder and brow, so it plants surely while you're kneeling and reaches high enough to hold a cloth brim above your crown. Wood is merciful. It doesn't flash heat like metal, and it grips in sand where aluminum skates. The tip tells truths. Press before you step into a suspect crust. If the staff sinks past 2 finger widths with little complaint, the ground is a drinker, not a bearer. Steer to firmer. On slopes, plant the tip upslope and let your wrist ride the staff like a hinge. Your ankle and knee will write smaller checks. When you rest, drive the staff into sand at a shallow rake, then lean your shoulder into it. Now it's a spar. Throw cloth and you have a roof. A notch carved near the top or a loop of cord catches scarf corners without knots, because knots cost time and patience you'll want to keep. The scarf is both wall and wind, shade maker and breath keeper. Size is kindness. 2 arm spans by 1 is enough to be a tent, a mat, a sling, a visor. Weave wants a paradox. Loose enough to breathe, tight enough to cast a true shadow. Cotton, linen, or a cotton-linen blend wears the day without sulking. Synthetics can glaze and glare. The scarf learns shapes on command. Fold once for a 2-layer awning. Twist an edge into a soft rope and pin it with a small stick to tension a ridge. Roll a thin circlet and wear it under the crown so air can keep a lane. Pinch a bill above the brow and you've made a visor. Flare the cheeks and you've made blinders against side glare. Shade that moves with you is better than shade you must chase. The bottle is a promise you carry. Shape matters. A slim bottle rests under a scarf in your lap without rolling. A wide-mouth bottle pours calmly into cloth for a measured dampening. Metal bottles tough it out but cook in sun. Wrap them in cloth or place them always on a folded square in shade. Plastic is lighter but can taste of day. Keep it hidden from direct light whenever you stop. Think of the bottle not only as reservoir but as instrument. Press it to the inside of an elbow for 2 breaths before you drink. Coolth delivered to blood close to the surface quiets the urge to gulp. Wet the scarf at the nape with 2 spoonfuls, then hide that damp under the dry layer. The bottle becomes a slow fan. Drink by mouth rinse. Hold, swallow on a soft exhale. Noon water is for steering physiology, not for feasts. A belt looks like an afterthought until you need a beam. Leather holds shape under heat and takes a hole where you ask. Webbing is light and strong, but can bite bare skin. Use it over cloth. In camp, it's a line to dry a scarf. On the move, it's a brace between staff and knee to keep an awning from collapsing, or a strap to cradle a bottle under fabric so it doesn't roam and warm. A spare belt loop, stitched or knotted onto the scarf's long edge, becomes an instant tie point. When wind rises, the belt's buckle anchors the scarf corner to the staff in 1 click. No fumbling. When you need your hands free in a rest, cinch the belt low over cloth to trap a pocket of shade against your belly and keep cool from blowing away. Add small company to these 4 and the kit becomes a poem. A hand length of cord, twice your forearm, a safety pin or 2, a light cloth pouch. The cord lashes scarf to staff, becomes a sand anchor when tied to a buried stick, holds a reed across your crown to dome the head wrap. Pins turn scarf into poncho or visor in 1 heartbeat. The pouch keeps grit from colonizing your nuts, dates, or salt pinch, because food that crunches with sand steals morale. Pack as if every item must do 3 jobs: staff, probe, mast; scarf, roof, mat, filter; bottle, drink, cool bank, weight for anchoring cloth; belt, beam, anchor, shade trap. The desert smiles on redundancies that come from overlap, not from carrying 2 of the same thing. If you break the staff, the scarf twisted tight becomes a rope. If you lose the belt, the cord steps up. If the bottle dents, it still holds shade under fabric as a cool stone would. Deployment is choreography. Practice the micro-shelter in 3 motions: plant staff, throw scarf, trap edges. Reverse it in 2. Free edge, lift scarf and staff as 1. Timed, it takes less than a breath and a half. Teach fingers their stations so you don't look down. Eyes belong to horizon and ground. In wind, turn your back to fill the cloth like a sail, then pivot and settle into lee. In dead air, lift the windward edge by a finger to make a throat. Everything tiny matters at noon. Tiny is the scale of victory. Carry habits, not just objects. Keep the scarf clean where it meets lips and nape. Grit there makes you choose between shade and comfort. Store the bottle where you can reach it while kneeling, under the scarf on your lap, not buried in a pack, so you never bargain with yourself about drinking. Let the staff lead the step on slopes. Plant, then move, so the brain trusts the ground and the shoulders relax. Keep the belt buckled 1 hole looser than vanity demands. A belly that breathes is a body that cools. Color talks to the sun. Pale outer cloth reflects. A slightly darker inner layer fosters that microconvection you want. A staff wrapped with a pale band near the grip is findable if you set it down. A belt that doesn't shine is kinder to eyes. The bottle, if bright, should live under a sleeve of cloth. Glare is a tax you don't need to pay. Even repairs can be shade. A torn scarf edge twists into a stronger cord. A split staff tip bound with cloth and pinned holds long enough to cross the next dune. A cracked bottle cap wrapped in fabric and cinched with belt and cord won't leak if it travels upright in your lap under the awning. The kit forgives if you understand it. Forgiveness is survival's true luxury. And when the sky finally loses its white anger and turns to the tender brass of afternoon, your tools change jobs without drama. The staff becomes a pointer to pick the next ridge. The scarf a pillow for a 10-minute nap while the wind writes new lanes. The bottle a modest feast shared. The belt a line to hang the cloth so it dries before evening's chill. You'll remember noon as a set of small arrangements, not a siege, because your gear was gentle science, and you practiced it like music.
At noon, Shade is a small country with many citizens. You are not the first to want it. The desert's quiet people, reptiles, insects, birds, small mammals, hold leases you can borrow if you greet them right. Survival here is part etiquette, part reading tracks, part knowing which shadows are already spoken for and which are common ground. Move gently, and the desert will make room. Blunder, and you'll pay heat for haste. Begin with the rule of approach. Let wind carry your introduction. Always come into shared shade from the windward side, so your scent travels ahead like a polite knock, and your steps do not surprise what rests there. Tap the ground with your staff before you step into a pocket. 2 light thuds, a pause, then 1 more. Many creatures respect rhythm. The pattern gives them time to slip away. Keep hands off the ground until the pocket is yours. Palms are curious, and the sand is candid. Thorns, ants, spines, hidden glassy chips all live where heat thins attention. Snakes write cursive at dawn and rest at noon. Their noon script is absence. No new tracks on the hot crust, only the memory of a cool morning's S-turns. Where an S-trail dives into a shrub shadow or a rock skirt, assume a coil is still within the radius of that shade. Claim the penumbra, not the nucleus. Sit just beyond the darkest center, in the faint ring where light begins to salt the sand. The same courtesy serves scorpions, who prefer tight shadows with a roof, a chip of stone, the lip of a crust. A quick, shallow scrape with the heel at the pocket's edge will show who owns the deed. If glossy black ants boil up, choose another square. If the sand settles and no life complains, kneel. Ants are tireless carriers of noon. They turn the best shade into highways. Learn their cadence. Straight lines between tiny factories, detours around your boot like a ribbon of punctuation. If they are few and in one lane, you can borrow shade by straddling their path. Knees outside the line, hands off the ground. But when you see the braided chaos of many lanes, leave. A colony's noon is a sovereignty you can't negotiate, and bites are the tax collector. A simple trick helps. Run your staff lightly across the shadow before you settle. If the staff comes away clean, the pocket is likely unpatrolled. If it carries stragglers, move on. Beetles advertise honest microclimates. A slow darkling beetle, the little tanks that raise their rear to sip fog at dawn, will choose the best stripe of cool at a dune's base. Watch where it lingers and copy its taste. 15 centimeters higher or lower can change how the air sits. Lizard tracks, delicate zipper trails with tiny handprints, point to lee pockets where the floor is firm. Their bodies overheat quickly, so their choices are precise. Borrow their benches for a minute, leave no trace, and they will return when you've moved on. Birds write marginalia at noon. If a wheat-eared or shrike flicks to a low perch above a pocket, it's often because insects stir where shade meets blaze. That edge is lively and safe enough if you don't press your face into the grass. Sit back a palm's length from the edge, let your scarf make the last span of shadow across your wrists, and listen to the small economy go about its business. If the bird alarms, a sharp chatter, a snapped tail, acknowledge and slide one body length away. Their energy is precious too, and a calm bird near you means the pocket is honest and free of surprise. Mammals are dusk creatures here, but their leases remain signed at noon. A foxhole's mouth will be sifted clean and shaded just so. A jerboa's neat punctures appear where sand stays firm under a thin crust. Do not sit where tunnels breathe. Even a light rate can collapse the ceiling and close a life's door. Instead, use the shade the mound throws at a remove. 2 handspans back from any hollow where the sand is plain and quiet. If you see a line of shallow digs that look like someone tapped with 4 fingertips, sand grouse have fed there. The birds may return, and they fly with water in their feathers for chicks. Give them the pocket if you can afford another. Your ledger favors generosity. The desert remembers. Plants are shade engines, but they come with thorns, spines, and tenants. Approach shrubs with elbows tucked, fabric against fabric, so you don't donate skin to the archive of the day. The best way to use a plant shadow is oblique. Sit where the shadow thins on the windward side and draw your own band of shade across it with cloth. You gain motion in the air, avoid the burrs, and leave the root zone unstomped. If a plant smells green in noon glare, water runs deep. Heat will pool there too. Rest short, then move to a drier, breezier stripe. Flies and midges police the stillness. They love the thick, breath-wet air in deep pockets. Your remedy is architecture, not swatting. Lift the scarf by a finger to make a throat for air to move. Shift one handspan toward the pocket's open lip and lower your chin so exhale spills down and away. A single fan with the edge of cloth clears the climate you've made without waking the dust. If the air still hums, the pocket is too tight, trade 3 degrees of shade for a little wind and the ledger will thank you.
Tracks are noon's minutes written in sand. Crisp edges, recent. Melted edges, old. If you arrive at a promising lee and the floor is crowded with fresh prints, scribe marks from beetle legs, zipper trails from lizard feet, commas from bird's feet, someone large may have passed not long ago to read the same coolness. Wait 1 minute in the bright to watch and listen. If the space stays undecided, choose another. The desert rewards patience with a pocket that says yes without debate. Clean floor, quiet air, nothing moving but heat's mirage. Sharing shade means sharing alerts. If a ground squirrel stands tall and barks, it has a reason. If a lark freezes, you freeze too. Let the environment choose 30 seconds of stillness for you a few times each hour. You'll miss fewer tempests of sand, fewer sudden tail shadows from raptors. In those stillnesses, your own senses reset. Pulse calms, breath lengthens, salt at the lip softens. You leave readier than you arrived. Night's citizens leave hardware behind. Spines, quills, and brittle cholla segments wash down lee slopes and collect in the sweetest pockets. Scan each pocket's upstream like a tiny watershed. If the ridge above is bristled or broken, gravity may have salted the pocket with pain. A stick drag across the surface tells the tale. Better still, lay a cloth square first and let it be your welcome mat. When you rise, shake it once, fold to trap any unseen needles, and tuck it away without flounce. Finally, honor the water owners. If a patch smells of damp earth at noon, something fragile lies underneath. Root mat, seep, a creature's last bank. Do not dig. Do not lift crust. The rule of this chapter is travel, not harvest. You're learning to spend less, not to take more. The desert keeps score, and its math is slow but exact. Every creature that meets noon with poise is your teacher. Every pocket that is busy teaches you to keep walking to the next. When you rise from borrowed shade, leave it kinder than you found it. No crumbs, no prints pressed deep, no broken crust, no startled tenant. You carry forward only what you needed: a steady pulse, a calmer breath, a minute of cool saved for the next step. This is how a traveler becomes a neighbor, even at noon, even without water.
At noon, the desert turns your body into an instrument, and survival becomes a slow arithmetic of heartbeats and shade. You are not racing distance, you are managing temperature. Pacing is your quiet ledger, pulse your currency, breath your metronome. Keep the sums small, the rhythm steady, and the hour will pass without asking for more water than you can spare. Begin with a gentle premise. You can go farther by going cooler than by going faster. Choose a pace you could keep while reciting a sentence in a calm voice. If words arrive chopped, you've overdrawn. Many travelers find a walking ratio that fits the glare. During the hardest 90 minutes around solar noon, move 4 minutes, rest 1. When the sun loosens its grip, move 8, rest 1. After the first lengthening of shadow, move 12, rest 1. These are not rules, they are lullabies for the body, predictable, kind, repeatable. Pulse is the budget line you check without looking at a watch. Count heartbeats for 1 full exhale. If the number drifts upward from one pocket of shade to the next, your ledger is turning red. Use breath to bring it back. Inhale softly through the nose for a count of 2. Exhale through barely parted lips for a count of 4. That 2-4 cadence, longer out than in, tells the nervous system that nothing is chasing you, and the heart believes it. After 3 cycles, your shoulders drop a thumb's width, your neck loosens, and sweat stops pleading. There is a simple math of steps and breaths that keeps heat honest. Try 4 steps in, 6 steps out when the path is easy. 3 in, 5 out when you turn up a slope or cross soft sand. 5 in, 7 out on hard, shaded ground where you can bank a little coolth. The aim is not to be exact, but to give movement a rhythm that conserves. Ragged cadence spills effort. Even cadence stores it. Arms are radiators. Treat them like valves. When you walk in a wind lane, let hands hang to vent heat from the wrists. When you rest in a pocket, fold forearms against the belly under cloth so the shade captures that cool and returns it to the core. If your forearms feel hot to your own lips, you are spending too quickly. Add 10 breaths to the next rest, not 10 strides to the next push. Water math is quiet, not panicked. At noon, you are not trying to replace sweat, you are trying to spend less of it. A mouth rinse and swallow is better than a gulp. A wetting of the scarf at the nape, hidden under a dry layer, cools longer than pouring on the chest. Teach yourself tiny sips that do not invite thirst to grow. Touch water to lips, hold, swallow with a soft exhale. Save the larger drink for the first honest shade after noon's middle. Think of water like capital. Invest in moments that lower your burn rate, shade, breath, posture, instead of paying interest on hurry. Salt is part of the math too, but noon is not the hour for heavy eating. If you carry a pinch of salted nuts or dried fruit, let one piece sit in the cheek during a rest. The taste coaxes saliva without asking the stomach to work hot. Food can wait for the hour when shade is generous. In the white hour, digestion steals blood you want at the skin. A grain of salt on the tongue in a rest, nothing more, can be enough to keep crap's whisper from growing. Shoes and steps conspire in your favor if you ask them to. On soft lee slopes, shorten stride until your heel hardly marks the sand. On pavement or firm crust, lengthen only a little. Long strides pump the thighs and raise heat. Let ankles do more work than knees. The small joints spend less water. If you must climb, the side step on the shaded shoulder of the slope costs least. Plant the outside edge, bring the trailing foot up. Pause one beat on a locked knee, then go. Those micro pauses are free. They belong to the exhale, and they buy you a cooler pulse. The sun writes a ledger line across the ground. Read it while you walk. When your shadow shrinks to a coin, adjust ratios. 3 minutes walk, 1 minute rest, 3 cycles. When the coin becomes a narrow blade, ease up to 4 and 1. When the blade grows to a hand's width, you can spend distance again, 5 and 1 or 8 and 1 without debt. Treat your own shadow as a sliding scale, not scenery. Skin has its own accounting. If it prickles without sweat, add shade, not speed. If sweat sits and does not evaporate, you've lost the wind lane. Shift 3 paces until you feel air's small teeth again. If dizziness taps once at the edge of vision, stop in the first pocket you can build. Staff, scarf, 1 knee. Count 20 long exhales with eyes half closed. If the tap returns, pay attention. The ledger is warning you to shorten moves and lengthen rests until the sky softens. You are not failing, you are balancing. Cloth can make or break the sums. Loosen collars and cuffs when walking to vent. Secure them when resting to trap the cool you've banked. Keep the gap over the crown. Reed circlet, twisted scarf, a loop of cord, so heat can climb and leave. If you must choose between shading the chest or the head for 1 minute, choose the head. The brain is the accountant who keeps the books legible for everything else. Gaze spends energy too. Squinting clenches the face and neck. Clenched necks rob breath of length. Build a soft visor from your scarf, a pinched bill, a twig slid between layers, so your eyes relax. Let the focus fall to 10 paces in front of you. Distant glare is expensive. Reset your horizon only in rests. 1 slow look to the next dune line, 1 to the sky to meet the sun and forgive it, 1 to your hands to remember they are steady. There is a friendly trick for morale math. Name each rest before you take it. Pebble seam, lee lip, spine cooler rock. When you arrive, deliver the thing you promised.
Wrists in shade, spine to stone, breath in 2s and 4s, then rise. Promises kept make a day feel lighter. The body believes the mind when the mind is trustworthy. A trustworthy mind spends less willpower. Less willpower means fewer, hot, hard breaths. As the hour tips, you will feel it in the pulse before you see it on the sand. The exhale lengthens on its own, the heart stops kicking at the ribs, and your skin no longer startles at a touch of sun. That is your sign to rebalance the ledger. Lengthen the walking minutes 1 notch, keep rests honest, and resist the urge to cash in all your cool at once. Evening is near, and the math of coolness will carry you there with a little to spare.
The desert shape is a book you can read with your skin. At noon, when the sky forgets kindness, terrain remembers it. Stone slabs that still whisper of dawn, gravel pavements that dull the sun's bite, and the calm, sloping backs of dunes that keep a ribbon of shade even when the world seems cleansed of it. If you learn these grammars, stone, pavement, lee, you can pace the hottest hour as if following notes on a staff, never lingering where the music grows harsh. Begin with stone, the quiet battery of night. A freestanding block tells 2 truths at noon. The sunward face blazes, the shadowed face keeps a memory. Approach each stone like a well, testing, not assuming. Lay the back of your hand on the dark side. If it reads neutral or faintly cool, sit with your spine to it, so the vertebrae meet that stored dawn and return it to your core. If the stone stings, it has drunk the sun too fully. Step away before it loans you heat you did not ask for. Overhangs are rare and precious, mushroomed rocks where wind has carved a waste. Under them, shade deepens and the air eddies. Crouch with your crown below the lip, and you will feel the temperature shift like a small mercy. Never lie flat under an overhang. Kneel or side-sit, so sand touches less of you, and leave quickly if gusts begin to pour grit. Overhang shade can choke on its own generosity when wind drives sand into the hollow. Think next of desert pavement, the armored floors where dark pebbles pave the surface. These patches are often cooler than bare sand because the stones shield the soil and trade heat slowly. Walk their margins, not their centers, to spare the crust. The down-sun edge of a pavement is a quilt of thumb-sized shadows, each pebble casting a dot of night. Drop a hand there, and you'll feel how the dots join to make a lane for wrists and ankles to rest. If wind has polished the stones smooth, they shed heat evenly. If they're rough and light-colored, they'll glare but not burn as fiercely. Pavement is also honest to your feet. It holds firm under small steps and does not steal energy with every lift. Cross it when you need distance with less cost, but keep your pace shy. Pavements can hide fragile soils below that dislike stomping. Dunes are the desert's breathing. Their windward slopes scrawl bright, their leeward backs soft shadow like folded blankets. The trick is to ride the cool back without asking your legs to fight loose sand. Follow the contour a little below the crest on the shaded side. There, sand is fresher. Grains that tumbled from the lip settled with a damped spring and hold your foot a fraction longer. Step with a low lift and a rolling plant, so the outer edge of the foot bites, then the whole sole settles. Your ankle becomes a hinge, your knee a metronome. Do not crest into glare unless you must. When a saddle between 2 crests obliges you to cross, do it quickly but not high. Aim for the lowest point where the ridge thins and wind shears have made the sand tighter. Rise with hat first, then eyes, then chest, offering the smallest banner to the blast. Ribs and spurs of harder ground, caliche shelves, bedrock tongues peeking through sand, serve as bridges.
Their upper faces scorch, their lee edges stitch shade along the ground like a seam. Think of these as zipper teeth. Your route is the zipper, traveling from tooth to tooth. Touch each tooth lightly. Kneel for 10 breaths, cool your wrists in the seam, and move on. Where a spur throws a longer tail of shadow, lay your path along it with small diagonals so you never lose the tail entirely. If the shadow shortens to a stub as the sun climbs, switch spurs. There is nearly always another seam within 3 ridges if you scan with squinted vision for tonal changes rather than shapes. Wadis, the dry riverbeds, are both gift and gamble at noon. Their high banks cast shade, their floors collect heat. Walk 5 paces up the bank in the shade, not on the floor in the glare. The sand there is often more compact, sifted by 1,000 small collapses, and you gain a sliver of height without spending a hill's worth of effort. Avoid the very foot of the bank where burrows plant traps for ankles and where thorns concentrate their armies. If the wadi twists sharply, shade pools where the bend turns its back to the sun. Treat those pools as stations. But listen for heat that lingers. Wadis can hoard it like ovens. A quick palm test to the soil tells you whether to use that bend or to climb to the rim and take the dunes cooler back for the next stretch. Crusted flats, playas, wear their moods on their skin. When dry and sound, their plates crack into tessellations with proud edges. When treacherous, the plates soften, edges blur, and prints linger too long. At noon, a good playa can be the cheapest distance you'll buy. Firm footing, big sky. But shade is scarce there, so you must dissemble it yourself. Walk the boundary where the playa kisses low hummocks. Every hummock's lee scratches a line of cool into the glare. Pace those scratches and meter your rests by them. Never trust a pale, damp sheen where the crust turns to paste under a surface that still looks whole. Noon heat will press that paste upward at the first misstep and borrow strength that you cannot build back. Stone fields, scree and talus, look like trouble, but hide mercy for the careful. Between the bigger blocks are chasms of air. The ground breathes through them. Kneel with a knee on a flat top and the other floating, letting fabric bridge to keep sun from licking the thigh, and the air that rises through the cracks will carry a hint of cellar into your shade. Test every perch. A rock that rocks is a thief of energy. Prefer triads, 3-point stances where your staff, a knee, and a foot share the load while your torso leans into your own awning of cloth. In talus, rest is active. A minute of arranging buys 2 minutes of honest cool. Read color as temperature. Darker sands, not black deserts, but the brown olive strips, often run cooler to the touch than raw blonde ripples because they reflect glare differently and pack finer. Pale gypsum fields glare cold but burn the eyes. They demand eye shade management more than skin shade. Granite boulders go from silver to white under noon. Their bright faces hurt more than they heat. Turn their pain into a visor by crouching where their glare fills your upper field, but your face is in shadow. Then, rise only when your eyes have rested in that artificial dusk for 8 or 10 breaths. The smallest terrain features multiply when you shrink your scale. A single goat's hoofprint pressed yesterday will leave a rim high enough to throw a crescent of shadow. The inside of that crescent is cool to a fingertip. Follow a line of such prints along a ridge, and you can treat each as a metronome tick. Touch, step, never losing rhythm. At the base of larger shrubs where wind scours a cup, look for a seam of darker sand and the faint sweet scent of shade. That's a lawful micro-rest if you approach windward and keep knees and hands off the bare center where creatures own the lease. Where stone meets dune, there is a treaty line. Sand piles against rock, and in doing so, makes a hybrid surface that is firmer than loose dune and cooler than naked stone. Search for these junctions by scanning for ripples that suddenly straighten against a hard outline. Walk exactly in that straightened band. It bears better and tempers heat. If the line climbs, do not follow it to where rock lifts into full sun. Instead, bail out into the dune's lee 2 steps before the junction loses its shadow. Always exit a blessing before it ends. That habit keeps you from ever arriving in the worst heat with no plan. If noon grants a wind shift, the desert redraws its script. A new wind will bite into the bright face of a dune and start sketching fresh lees across slopes that were mean minutes ago. This is when patience pays. Stand high enough to see 2 or 3 lines ahead. Choose the first lee tongue that will exist in 2 minutes, not the one that exists now, and let it form under your feet as you arrive. Reaction spends energy. Anticipation spends almost none. You are walking inside the hour hand's motion, not against it. Never forget that heat climbs from below. Even in good shade, ground brilliance bleeds upward. Combat this with layers and voids. A folded scarf under knees, a shoe sole thickened by an extra insole or a wrap of cloth, a water bottle on a cloth square, not on crust, a palm rested on a staff, not on sand.
In the noon desert, anything that makes a pocket of night is architecture, even if it is only a scarf, a stick, and the way you sit. You won't raise a tent, you will raise a moment. Shade that exists for 60 breaths is enough to lower the skin's argument with the air, to steady the heart, to buy the next ribbon of walking. The craft is small and portable, cloth that breathes, postures that cast their own shadows, and little rigs that bloom and vanish without leaving a trace. Begin with cloth as climate. Fabric is not just a barrier, it's a lung. Loose weave invites a slow trade. Hot air out, a whisper of cooler air in. Tight weave blocks wind and becomes an oven. A 2-layer trick helps. A light outer cloth that greets the sun and reflects glare, and a slightly darker inner cloth that drinks a little heat and re-radiates it into the gap, driving a tiny convection that keeps your skin from taking the full insult. Don't cinch it. Let cloth stand away from the body by a finger's thickness at collarbone, shoulders, and spine. That gap is where comfort lives. Hoods and head wraps work best when they hold air. A head covering that collapses onto hair traps heat. One that lifts even the width of a twig changes the math. Tuck a reed, a twig, or a loop of cord across the crown under the fabric so it arches like a low bridge. If your wrap allows, twist a slim coil of cloth into a circlet and set it like a soft crown beneath the outer layer. The circlet becomes scaffolding, keeping the dome lifted so air can comb through. Shade is cooler when it moves. Hands and wrists are the desert's thermometers and taps. Keep them shaded whenever you stop. A sleeve that narrows at the wrist can be loosened for walking and buttoned for resting, so the cool you banked doesn't spill. If sleeves are short, tie a strip of cloth loosely around each wrist, wide enough to shadow the artery, loose enough to flutter. Even a shadow the width of a thumb can take the sting out of pulse points that spend water too freely. Posture is an instrument. A standing body is a flag in bright wind. A kneeling body, rightly arranged, is a little tent. For a micro-rest, kneel on one knee, the other foot planted. Let the torso fold so the back makes a shallow roof and the belly is shaded by your own ribs.
Drape your scarf from shoulder to knee like a lean-to. Anchor one corner with your elbow, the other with the planted foot. Hands come off the ground. Rest them on your thigh in your own shade. This posture gives air a lane under the cloth and sets your chest in a cool pocket where breathing softens. When time allows a longer pause, still minutes, not hours, build a two-stick awning from what you carry. A walking staff planted firm at your left knee, another, or a low bush that you trust, at your right hip, a scarf thrown between and pegged with your own weight. Slope the fabric so the sun strikes at an angle and can't stare. Leave the windward edge loose and a finger raised to create a throat where air climbs in. A brim emerges. Your lap becomes a shallow cave. Drink with a wet lip if you must. Keep the bottle in the shade so it does not warm between sips. A belt is a beam in disguise. Hook it between staff and pack or staff and knee to keep fabric from sagging. A single nut makes a catenary that sheds light like water. If you carry no belt, twist the scarf's edge into a cord and pin it with a simple stick pushed through the twist and into the sand. One motion, one anchor. All this is furniture that deassembles in seconds. You leave only brush marks. Feet want architecture too. Sand burns least where it is hidden. Make their house with cloth. If sandals are thin, wrap a spare strip under the forefoot and over the instep before you set off. Fabric plus air gap blunts the pan heat from below. When you stop, set heels in shade first, either your own or a scrap of cloth thrown down and then folded back up to leave no trace. Toes will forgive heat longer than heels and arches. Tend the heels like coals you are saving for evening. Shadows can be borrowed and multiplied. The less time the sun sees skin, the longer your water lasts. If you kneel just inside a dune's lee, twist your body so your legs fall within the dune's shadow while your torso lives under your scarf. Two shadows crossing shave more than either alone. If a rock offers a sliver of darkness, add your own. Align your shoulder so its blade throws a second band for your wrists. Make layers. Rock, dune, cloth, posture. Shade stacks. Heat rises from ground as surely as it falls from sky. A mat the size of two hands changes more than comfort. It alters the physics at your contact points. If you have no mat, fold your scarf twice and set down only knees or hip bones, never the broad meat of the thigh. Set your water bottle on the mat, not the sand, and keep it in your tent of shade while you rest. If condensation gathers on the bottle when you're moving again, trap that coolness. Press bottle to the inside of your elbow for a breath or two, then stow it. Little tricks that calm nerves without spending sips. Cloth can carry cool if you teach it patience. The tiniest wetting, 2 mouthfuls pressed into the scarf where it crosses the nape, lasts longer in shade than in sun. Wring it so it is dank, not dripping, then hide that damp under the outer layer. Evaporation in shade is slower, which is what you want. A long, gentle drift of cool, rather than a bright flare that leaves you drier than before. Never wet the chest fabric directly in the sun at noon. You'll make a greedy radiator that steals more than it gives. Eyes have their own shade. Squinting spends energy. If you lack glasses, you can still build a visor. Pinch the scarf forward above the brow to make a shallow bill, or slide a thin twig between layers to hold a brim. Lower lids can rest when the top shade is good. You will read the ground better and stumble less. Sight is a conservation tool. Every stumble costs heat. Breathing belongs in the shade, too. Fabric over mouth and nose is miserable if tight. It is a mercy if it floats. Bring the scarf forward off the lips by a finger's width when you traverse dusty lanes. Air filters without smothering, and each exhale leaves with less salt. In pockets where air goes still, lift the bottom edge and fan once, just once, to stir the private climate you've made, then let it settle. Many little fans steal more than one good stir gives. When time allows a gift, a cloud's edge, a dust veil that softens the sky, expand your architecture, not your stride. Widen the brim of scarf and staff. Make room for your shoulders to cool entirely. Let the wind comb your crown through the lifted dome of cloth, and only then add a minute of gentle distance. The aim is always the same. Bank coolth, spend calmly. At departure, collapse your shelter as neatly as a breath. Shake sand from cloth with one soft snap, not a flourish that sprays grit into your mouth and eyes. Roll the scarf so it's ready to fly again in 2 motions, not 10. Lift the staff smooth, turn the shoulder, and rejoin the seam of shade along the dune. Each small efficiency is a coin you will spend later, on the last hot ridge, on the last bright flats, when dusk is near and you want your steps to stay quiet. Under this tiny architecture, noon becomes negotiable. You are not armored, you are accompanied, by shade you make, by cloth that breathes, by postures that remember how bodies cool themselves when the world asks too much. The desert accepts this courtesy. It lets you pass, slower than pride, faster than trouble, toward the first forgiving length of late afternoon shadow.
At noon, the desert seems to have only 2 moods, blast and blaze. But if you kneel and watch, you'll notice the air sorting itself into quieter corridors, wind lanes, like invisible footpaths drawn across the sand. The surface writes their story in ripples, regular, parallel chords running one direction, their crests tidy and evenly spaced. Step 5 paces aside, and the pattern tangles, eddies, crosshatching, little starbursts where breezes collided. You want the chords, not the knots. In the chords, wind moves with purpose. It slips along your skin instead of bumping and swirling until sweat turns sticky. Even 2 fingers of moving air can shave a degree from your world and a handful of heartbeats from your pulse. Finding a lane starts with squinting at texture rather than distance. Narrow your eyes until the landscape loses color and becomes contrast. The lanes will show as satin bands, less sparkle, more even tone. Run a palm across one ripple crest. If grains tinkle and roll like dry sugar, wind is alive here. If they sit sulking, this is a pocket where air loafs. Your route becomes a soft zigzag, drifting from lane to lane, letting the breeze do what your lungs don't have to. When lanes cross a dune's shoulder, follow the seam where the breeze and the shadow meet. You'll feel a faint cool at the wrist and neck, as if the desert were exhaling only for you. Lee pockets are the shade's younger cousins, little hollows scooped out of sun by anything with a face against the light. The lee of a dune is obvious, but there are smaller lees, behind a knuckle of compacted sand, under the lip where a dust crust arches over a tiny void, in the angle between 2 ripples that kissed and parted. A good pocket is not just dark, it's quiet. Sand doesn't skitter there. Sound goes cottony, and your breath drops a step without asking. Test with the back of your hand held at knee height. If the air feels herdless, no little stampede of grains, this pocket will keep your micro-rest honest. Micro-rests are punctuation marks, not paragraphs. You're not lying down to surrender. You're adding commas to your noon sentence. 30 seconds can matter. Kneel on one knee with the other foot planted to stand again. Fold your torso forward just enough that fabric tents above your chest, making a thumb-thick layer of air that doesn't cook. If you carry a scarf, pinch two corners and raise them a little so breeze lifts it. If you carry nothing, make shade with posture. Turn your shoulder to the sun. Tuck your chin. Rest your forearms on your thighs so wrists hang in shadow. Hands are honest thermometers. When their heat stops pleading, you're ready to move. The smallest gear becomes architecture at noon. A staff isn't just balance on slopes. It's a roof when you jam one end into sand and drape a scarf over it, casting a palm's worth of night onto your lap. A belt or cord becomes a frame. Loop it between staff and knee to keep cloth from collapsing. A spare shirt becomes a two-layer awning if you fold it once and trap a sliver of air between layers. Keep edges loose. Tension makes a sun-lit drumhead that throws heat back at you. Slack fabric breathes. Some pockets ask for caution. The prettiestly, a crisp overhung curl of sand, can hide a soft spot where your weight breaks through and pours heat up from a buried bake. Prod with your staff. If it sinks too readily, or if the crust whistles as it cracks, shift a handspan to the side and kneel where sand is duller and more granular. In wadis and low swales, wind lanes may die and heat puddles. There the rule changes. Climb a pace or two up the bank to steal breeze, then return to shade to rest. You're not courting altitude, you're courting movement in the air. Noise becomes a map when your eyes tire. Listen for hiss versus rustle. Hiss is wind gnawing a crest. Rustle is brush or palmetto leaves adding teeth to the breeze. Hiss without rustle means open sand lanes, steady but sometimes sharp. Rustle means a chance of mottled shade and filtered light, kinder if you can keep a margin from thorns and insects. In the hush of a pocket, your breathing echoes sooner. Use that as a meter. If your exhale takes longer to vanish into the world, this is a good place to give the heart 24 slow counts and then go. Footwork keeps the budget. The line between a lane and a pocket is often a soft slope. Don't stomp across it. Ride it. Let your ankles be curious, not stubborn. Roll each foot in, a diagonal landing along the outside edge, so your weight distributes and the sand answers with less grab. Lift low. Dragging sand with your toes is like dragging a plow. Your stride shrinks into something that looks almost embarrassed, but you're buying minutes with those smallnesses. Clothing learns to cooperate. Loosen a collar in a lane. Snug it in a pocket so trapped cool doesn't flee. Vent sleeves at the wrists when you walk. Cover wrists when you rest. If your head covering allows, lift it a finger breadth off your crown in a lane. Breeze will comb, not bake. Then, in a pocket, ease it back down to hoard that combed air. You are herding coolth like a shepherd. Gather, move. Gather, move. Your shadow is a partner you can read like a barometer. When it shrinks to a coin, your body is no help. When it lengthens to a handspan, you gain a personal refuge. Train yourself to glance down every dozen steps. If the coin becomes a blade, pause and put the blade to work. Turn so it falls over your wrists and throat while you breathe 3 slow cycles. The desert grants this private shade whether or not there is a dune nearby. It's rude not to accept the gift. The mind must be tended as gently as the skin. Noon's glare narrows thought. Your world can contract to the prick of light off a single grain and the itch of salt at the lip. Build a small ritual to keep the horizon in you, even when it's absent outside. Count ripples, 20 crests, then a breath.
Name colors that aren't obvious: shadow blue, iron gray, straw gold, just to keep the brain from chewing on thirst. Humming is better than speaking. It spends little moisture and paces the step. The aim is not to distract from the heat, but to keep your attention elastic so it doesn't snap. When the lane delivers you to the foot of a steep lee, don't be tempted to climb straight where the sand is deepest. Traverse a shallow diagonal just under the lip where shade lingers. The slope is firmer there, shaped by the weight of sliding grains. If you must climb, use the side step. Plant the foot across the slope, edge biting. Bring the other above and repeat. Your calves will complain less. Your heart will write a smaller check. At the top, do not crest into blast. Rise slow, let the hat or scarf breach first, then your eyes, then your chest. The difference between the windward glare and the leeward hush can be violent. Meeting it gradually keeps your lungs from gasping and wasting the cool you banked. Even the bright, empty flats have lee pockets, though they hide in plain sight. Look for gravel patches, desert pavement where darker stones armor the surface. Those stones store dawn and dribble it back. Kneel at their down-sun edge where each pebble casts a dot, and you'll find a quilt of tiny shadows big enough for fingers and wrists. It feels like a joke the desert tells for anyone who pays attention. A forest of shade an inch tall, perfectly sized for human pulse points. At last, if luck grants a cloud, rare but holy, prepare to spend it well. A cloud at noon is a curtain that drops for less than a minute. Don't sprint. Decide in advance where your next 2 waypoints will be, lanes and lees lined like stepping stones. When the light softens, move with purpose, but not panic. Let your small rituals hold. If the cloud passes before you reach the second stone, honor the plan anyway. Your steadiness is worth more than the seconds the shade took back. The sum of these tiny mercies, lanes, pockets, micro-rests, does not look like heroism. It looks like shyness. But at dusk, when you step out of the last lee and feel the day's ferocity dissolve into the first forgiving air, you will discover you've kept a quiet surplus, a steadier pulse, skin that never scalded, and a small sip of water still sitting in its jar because you didn't spend it on hurry.
The desert at noon looks empty of auctions, but it is full of narrow invitations. A dune's crest draws a blade across the light. The windward slope glares, the leeward softens, and exactly at the turnover, a knife edge that hisses and slips under the breeze, a thin shade falls down the lee like a curtain. That stripe is a road if you treat it like one. Not a road for miles, not a road for speed, but a string of brief halts measured in heartbeats and steps. In this hour, you trade distance for temperature. Progress is counted not in kilometers, but in cooler minutes. Start with the clock you carry on your skin. Put the sun at your left cheek. The shadow of your nose falls as a compass needle. If it shortens to nothing, you're too near vertical noon. Your body can't cast enough cool to help you, and you rest where the sand itself offers a darker tone. Scan for texture first. Places where ripples compress into tighter lines, windbreaks there. Where the sand darkens by a shade, grains are finer and cooler to touch. Where a stain of pebbles outcrops, stone bleeds night longer than sand. A low tussock of halfa grass can stretch a ribbon of shade the length of your forearm if the sun is a little off the zenith. A knee-high boulder will throw enough darkness for ankles and wrists even at strict noon. The trick is to assemble these small mercies into a dotted path. Shadows move fastest when you need them most, right around noon, so you learn to catch them on the run. Stand at the edge of a dune's lee and watch the line descend, gentle at first, then quick as the breeze changes, until it reaches the softer sand below. That is your signal to step. Bare or wrapped feet slide down with minimal lift. You avoid the hot work of punching upward. On the next rise, you do not climb the sunside. You traverse under the lip where shadow spills. Your gait becomes shy. Short steps, small arcs, knees easy. Each footfall more of a roll than a stamp, so the sand doesn't grab and your calves don't boil. The desert rewards soft feet. It punishes sprinting. Heat is not a number. It is a budget. Sweat is water you won't see again today. So you practice kulth banking. In each pocket of shade, you take a minute, just a minute, to slow pulse and let skin radiate. Keep your arms loose at your sides. Don't flap fabric like flags. Don't turn your face to the glare. If you carry cloth, drape it so that a small air gap hovers above the skin, especially over the chest and the back of the neck. Cotton or linen layered loose makes a microclimate. Tight synthetics make a plastic bag. Sand at shade's edge is your friend. Scoop a handful and hold it in your palm. Rotate it against the wrist. If it feels only warm rather than stinging, the pocket is worth the pause. The desert's air can be lazy or sly. Wind lanes, long, low corridors where breeze collects, telegraph themselves by the way ripples align. When the ripples straighten into same-length chords and the crests lie all one way, you're in a lane. When they curl and knot, wind tore at cross purposes and won't cool you much. Choose the straightened ripples. In those lanes, you can walk the seam where a dune's shade and the wind's movement overlap. The temperature drop may be a whisper, but the budget hears it. Between lanes, travel inside the dune's S shape. Down the cool back, traverse the shaded shoulder, short hop to the next line of shade, then rest. Rests are not collapses. They are acts. Sit so that the smallest surface area touches sand. Side sit on one hip, feet tucked under fabric, hands off the ground if you can manage it. A scarf or spare cloth becomes a mat the size of your two hands, enough to keep the worst heat from your palms when you brace yourself. If you carry a staff, lay it across your thighs to prop fabric like a tiny awning. Shade is cumulative. A scarf, plus a dune lip, plus a stray boulder, can shave 4 degrees off a patch the size of your shoulders. 4 degrees is a miracle at noon. If you see a tree in the distance, a thorn, a tamarisk, do not be lured by the idea of a feast of shade. Trees are oases for every biting creature out here. They're sometimes where the ground crusts and breaks over old burrows. Approach from the windward side so your scent pushes ahead. Tap the ground with a stick. Watch for the sudden geometry of snake or the sparkle of ants. The shadow under a small tree may be cooler, but it's also busy. Better often is the shadow the tree throws at a distance of 3 or 4 meters, a dimmer patch no one is using, clean, with wind moving through. If you must sit near a trunk, sit with your back on the windward side so the trunk breaks the blast and the air pools a little in your lap. Stones are different. They are night batteries. A shoulder-high slab will still hold dawn's cool by noon if the morning was mild. Put your spine to the stone in its shade, and you can leach a little night into your core. Test first. Press the back of your hand to the stone's dark face. If it stings, move on. If it feels neutral or faintly cool, that's a bank worth robbing. In the deepest noon, stones near ground level often bake. Look instead for those lifted by erosion or perched on caliche that breathes below. Anything with air under it is less likely to have soaked the sun whole. You can map future shade by watching silhouettes. A crest lines up with the sun and the ridge throws a tongue of darkness downhill. You can see where the tongue will kiss in 3 minutes by drawing a line in your head, from the sun to the edge. That target spot, maybe a handspan of darker tone on the sand, becomes your next waypoint. Move toward it slowly. Let it meet you. There is a joy in being present when a shadow arrives, like catching a train no one else knew was scheduled. You sit in it for 60 breaths and then move on. Always forward, but never hurried. Clothing is part of the map. Light colors reflect, dark colors radiate. A light outer layer with a darker inner layer can make a low-tech heat pump. The dark absorbs where it faces your body. The light throws glare back out. Vent the crown of your head if you can. Loosely woven cloth, a gap between fabric and hair, so you don't trap a halo of hot air. Keep wrists and ankles covered. These are where blood flows close to skin. If you must wet anything, wet the crown and the scarf above the neck from a mouth rinse or the smallest sip. Do not pour onto the shirt. Evaporation at heat's peak will steal water swiftly and make you chase cool with thirst. A damp cloth in the shadow of a scarf is a longer, cheaper cool. Distance warps at noon. Things look closer or flatter than they are. You don't chase far horizons. You string beads. 10 minutes to the next pocket, 2 minutes of rest. 5 minutes along the lee, 1 minute to let pulse fall. Think in ratios. If breath climbs, you're paying too much. If your mouth dries to paper, you mispriced shade for speed. The right price is when you could speak a sentence without panting and you never need to lick your lips. The desert shares one last secret with those who listen. Smell. Hot sand smells empty. Shaded sand smells faintly mineral, like a jar that once held rain. If you catch that scent as you step, you've found a good pocket. If you smell the shy green of a plant you can't see, wind is bringing you news of a hollow where roots find a trickle. Cooler air often pools there too. You are not hunting water today. You are hunting what water would have wanted at noon. Shade, slowness, a small hush.